tea with the cream is good.
It's kind of sophisticated, right?
Yeah, I'm used to just doing the green tea plain.
Yeah, dude. Nope, don't do it.
All right, you wanna do it?
Yeah. Do you want to lead us into this one, or you want me to?
Yeah, yeah. So this one is an idea that we've been kicking around for a while. So obviously, if you don't know, I kind of come from the hardcore world. I played in a band for most of my adult life, and basically grew up going to hardcore shows. And hardcore music, punk music, metal music has all been a part of my life since I was 15, basically. And as I have entered fatherhood, 6-7 years ago, when you become a parent, you begin to navigate a lot of decisions that you didn't even think about before you had kids. And they're actually all really important decisions. And you're navigating just the most basic stuff, like even starting in pregnancy, like how are you going to birth your child? Like you're talking about that with your wife, right? Like, are we going to do it at home? Are we going to the hospital? Are we going to get a C-section? And then once your kid is born, your sleeping arrangement, what they're eating, are they breastfeeding? Are they not? Are they going to go to school? Are you going to homeschool? What are you going to feed them? There's all these decisions that you're making. And it occurred to me recently that there's so many, there's so much of my worldview that has been informed by being involved in hardcore music, punk music, that I've carried into parenting in a way that's been helpful for me. Mm-hmm. And I will share that side of it for me because that's what's true to me. But I also know that a big part of why we're friends is because we've arrived at a lot of the same conclusions, despite not being from that world for you. Right? So and I want to talk about that and kind of how did we all get here. Yeah. But I think it might be helpful to start with, and so just the concept of this episode is I want to make a case for why you should consider going against the grain of kind of mainstream society or kind of popular culture. Be willing to go against the grain, I should say, and a lot of the decisions that you'll be making as a parent. And I think it might be helpful to first set up why. Right. So I don't want to just say, hey, just be difficult and go against the grain just for the sake of it. Like, what are you actually going against the grain on? I would say for most people, depending on where you live, there's kind of an expected way for you to raise your kids. And there's kind of a template. There's an agreed upon norm of how to raise your kid. And all these decisions that we're talking about, there's kind of yeah, you could kind of lean this way or that way, but you kind of have to be within these guardrails.
Yes.
And as long as you're within the guardrails, you're not really going to raise any eyebrows. Mm-hmm. And then you start going outside of the guardrails and people start saying, whoa, like what's going on with them? Yeah. And so it's worth asking the question, where did those norms come from? Where did the guardrails come from? Why are they there? And I think when you dig into where the norms come from, it can really open up your eyes to why it may be important to make some tough decisions. Mm-hmm. And so I'll start with that. I think I have a unique point of view on this, having been involved in building a company from essentially the ground up. You get pretty familiar with how companies work and just basic economic stuff, just how do you kind of build a company and what's important and what's not. And so I think a lot of the decisions that we're making as parents are usually having to do, like they're usually connected to an industry, right? So if I'm thinking about how I want my kids to eat, as an example, like what their diet's going to be, well, there's an entire industry that supports that, right? What medications should my kid be taking? There's a whole industry that supports that, right? There's the school system. That's more of kind of like a system, right? It's less of an industry per se, but like there's like this major structure, right, that is influential on the decision potentially. And so for any of those major industries or systems, I think it's important to understand that when they were designed, or kind of the way that they are designed, at no point was the well-being of you or your kids a factor. And what I mean by that is when people think of how companies work, I think they generally think, well, they're setting out to do what's best for people, and they want to make some money too. So, sometimes people get greedy, and that's kind of their interpretation of capitalism. It's like, yeah, they're out there trying to solve problems and help people, but they got to make money too, and that's kind of as bad as it gets. And so the first thing I just want to make a kind of a stop on and just emphasize is that your well-being, your kids' well-being is literally not a factor in how these systems are created and how these companies operate. There's not people sitting in a room starting with what's the best thing for people. What's the best thing for families or young kids out there? Let's build our industry around that.
Well, I love it. And let me also go a step further. Not only are you and your well-being and your kids' well-being not even a factor, there's actually floors and departments designed to hide the detrimental stuff that is happening to you and your kids for a lot of these people, right?
Yeah.
Through lawsuits, through testing, through lab testing. They often understand problematic parts or features or things in their product. So not only are you not really being considered your well-being, many companies are actively hiding the damage that is being done from their product on you and your children.
Yeah.
So it's like grim. This is a grim episode, but it's one that I think Sam and I, in good conscience and good faith, we can't have a fatherhood podcast without talking about, kind of what the stakes are and what we're up against as parents in 2025. Yeah.
It's sad because I think individual people, I think most people are pretty good. I think most people are generally good people. I generally feel like I can trust most people. That's how most people operate, kind of in good faith. And I think people apply that same level of trust and good faith to companies and to governments. They're like, yeah, they're probably out there trying to do what's best for us. And I really want to push back on that and help people understand that the way that this is, in my opinion, kind of a blind spot and a weird thing with the way that capitalism works is that is not a factor. Not a factor at all.
Yep.
It is biased around what makes the most money. And I don't want any of this to sound like a conspiracy theory. This is literally just economics 101. And so I think some people might hear that and think, well, capitalism is built in with checks and balances. If something's not working, then the company's not going to do well. And it's like, yeah, that works great for a household product that breaks when you buy it. And then they've built a low quality product, it's breaking, they're going to go out of business. Got it. That works. It's much harder when you're talking about the impact of something that lasts over decades, and it's something very hard to measure, like someone's health. Dude, if you've ever heard of diet studies, they're almost impossible to do because you can't remove all of these other factors that convolute. Yeah, all these variables. There's too many variables.
Yep.
So it's like this person eats meat, this person doesn't. Oh, but also this person's smoking, this person's doing this other thing. They're like there's all these factors that influence your health, and I'm just kind of honing in on health as an example. Yeah. But the same could be said for education or other stuff too. There's all these decisions are really hard to measure the impact. And so I'd make the argument that we are currently in a massively destructive, kind of a negative feedback loop where our society is basically degrading and people are profiting from that. And again, I hope if you hear that and think that's a conspiracy theory, I would encourage you to just apply a little bit more critical thinking to this, because if everyone, the way that our stuff is set up, if everyone was healthy and didn't have problems and whatever, it's there would not be a lot of the industries there are today. Our largest industries would not exist.
Yeah.
So we are very profitable as sick, unhealthy, unhappy people.
Yeah.
And so going back to the norms and where the norms come from, the food pyramid's a great example. The food pyramid did not start with a bunch of scientists in a lab being what's the best thing for kids to eat? What's the healthiest thing for them to eat? They're like, hey, what's our highest margin products that are the most scalable and easiest to sell? And they're like, okay, let's start with those. Those are the foundation, these grains and processed foods. Let's make that the base,
Yep.
And then, okay, how can we use our money? How can we use our resources to kind of influence this being essentially a policy or a concept that's pushed on the entire population?
And then also, how can we also allocate money to basically psychological warfare or misinformation or propaganda about how eggs or something else?
Right.
Well, let's demonize that too, so we can have more market share. And you know what I mean? So it is psychological warfare. It's propaganda, like
Yeah.
from the start, corporate stuff and,
Yeah.
and business, marketing. It's just, marketing, that's just a fancy term for propaganda. Right.
And dude, it's not like, this is not fringe stuff. Like, we're not breaking any news here. Like, literally go look up, I forget the guys' names, but the whole like sugar studies things with saturated fat.
Yep.
I think it was two scientists in like the 60s or 70s got paid. It was like $50,000 to make up this study or falsify the study that said that the cause of all these issues that were happening at the time or in the study were due to saturated fat and fat, not sugar. Knowing that it was sugar causing the problem.
Yep.
And to this day, we're operating in a world where if you ask most people that are kind of in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they're like, oh yeah, stay away from saturated fat, stay away from fat, gotta stay low fat.
Yep.
And that was all just massive. That was not true at all.
Yeah, and again, if you think this is tinfoil hat stuff, like lovingly, you're behind the power curve right now really bad, and you just have to go do your research, because it's like you could find so many of these stories. Another one is Seventh-day Adventists, right, are behind a lot of the cereal companies, right, and they are, through their religion, they are vegetarian, right, and they're not into meat, right, and again, they promoted and pushed this one way that was, what they feel was the ideal, but they not only promoted through industry, through the lobby, through funding studies, all these kind of things. They didn't only promote what they thought was right. They actively tried to demonize this other thing that just happened to be animal products and saturated fat and all that kind of stuff. But you could, again, this is all verified. You can go find very factual stuff. You have, I don't know if there's an easier place to start than the dietary industry to find the insanity that is who funds all the studies, who bankrolls all the scientists, right? And it's very, very cut and dry. They pay for the research they want, and then they can market and promote nonsense craziness.
I think there's kind of this like antiquated concept that, and dude, I don't even mean this as a diss on scientists. This is just how, again, the world works. Like, scientists aren't sitting around being like, what problem can we solve for humanity? It's like, who's going to give us money to do this study or to fund this research, or where can we get this grant?
Yep.
And the people that are dishing out money are the ones that are thinking that whatever that study is going to be is going to help them make more money on something.
100%.
So,
100%.
Hey, we have a feeling that this product is going to work and we're going to be able to sell it. So let's fund some studies for it.
Yep.
And so you just have to realize that, again, like, this all in turn, as you kind of cycle through this stuff, this is what shakes out as the norms in society. The things that we all agree are normal, like low fat, that did not come from what's best for people. That didn't happen in a vacuum. That happened as the result of massive industry influence and manipulation.
Right.
And what I'm here to say, dude, and I think we're both here to say, is like, that is just virtually everything. A lot of these kind of like, again, going back to the kind of template of I'm raising a kid in America right now, and here's the decisions that I'm going to make. That template is heavily influenced by multiple industries and systems. And so you just have to realize, like,
and when we say multiple industries and systems, we're talking about sharks. We're talking about profit-driven axe murderers.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we're talking about. Same with politicians, right? It's like, people that rise through the ranks, that get to the upper echelons of politics or corporations, like, they know where the bodies are buried, and they were promoted because they were willing to look the other way or step over however many bodies they needed to get to where they are in these industries, right? We all know it's cutthroat, and these corporations, again, going back to what you said at the very start, they not only don't care about your well-being, right? A lot of the time they're financially incentivized to screw you and your family over.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, like, hopefully stage that argument first and not have it be a conspiracy thing. It's just, no, like, the way that economics work and the world works is that a lot of what's normal for us is quote unquote normal because it benefits entities, people, industries that are much more powerful than we are. So just take that at face value, like that is what's influencing what's normal. And so then you kind of get to this trade-off decision of, well, what's more important to me? Is it more important to fit in and kind of get along and do what everyone else is doing and kind of follow that template, or is it more important that my kids are going to be healthy and have the best shot that they can have and be as healthy as they can be and happy as they can be, right? And that's a real trade-off decision that I believe if you didn't realize you were making it, you are making it with a lot of this stuff. And you may just be favoring social cohesion without even realizing it. But I can tell you that early on for us, there's a lot of those decisions, some of the ones I listed off earlier, where we started to do stuff that wasn't the same as everyone else. And you start to get the weird looks or the questions or the vibe is weird or, people don't get what you're doing and start giving you weird feedback. Like that is going to happen almost 100%, like certainly. So that I wanted to start with that of just like, why is it important to even like when we say go against the grain, like why, and so like you could imagine again, many decisions that you're making throughout the course of and for us, it's only been 6 or 7 years. We've had to make dozens and dozens and dozens of difficult decisions that ultimately led us to a place where, like when we show up in Seattle, it's like that is a feral family right there. That family does not live here. I don't know where they came from, but they came from the hills of Idaho somewhere or something, it's so I wanted to start with that. And then what makes this interesting to me is, again, like the parallels to punk music. And so if you don't know kind of how that all started, I mean, the whole concept of punk music really was about being willing to go against the grain and people that didn't identify or didn't fit in kind of mainstream culture. And they kind of identified as outcasts to that. And they were willing to go off and do their own thing, do things their own way. Right. And and that's part of like the early kind of punk image was like, crazy hair and mohawks and crazy clothes and stuff, because it was kind of like embracing, hey, we're not like you, we're different. We're doing our own thing over here. And I've thought a lot about that as we've had kids where it's felt like that to me, where we have felt like outcasts in decisions that we're making.
Well, and I think too, right, just a little bit from the outside looking in, like, I got to go to a show the other night. I got to meet some of like your friends and people that are like in bands you've been in and, and others. And it's like the thing too that I imagine is part of it, right, is you get into that kind of music scene, right? And then all of a sudden you're looking at like mainstream music, right? And you're looking at the machine that's behind that, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's the record labels that are promoting this person.
Right.
That's like not really that talented, but they look really good on an album cover, right? Or they can draw a fan base. And then that's the thing, right? It's like you start peeling back the layers in any industry and you see how much of it is manufactured, not organic, right?
Yeah.
And you're over here in a movement that's purely organic, that's not being funded from money outside. It's just the community, making it happen. And then, and then you look and you see that, the stuff that seems normal is not normal. It's not even real, right?
Yeah.
It's fake. It's manufactured, like to a degree, right?
Yeah.
To different degrees. So, yeah. I mean, I can absolutely see. And the thing that struck me the most, just about meeting some of your community, is how welcoming they were. Like to just some random buddy of yours. Like they were so kind, so welcoming, and that's kind of what I've enjoyed about meeting other like-minded parents. It's the same way. Like we're kind of all in this together because we're not the norm, right?
Yeah.
And we're not kind of signing up for whatever everyone else is. And it's like, so I love this episode because there are a lot of parallels, even from a guy without this background. It's like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't really become clear to me until the last few years why I've really been like, oh, this is kind of the same thing, because I started going to shows and getting into, hardcore and punk stuff because I didn't feel like I fit in with, the kids at school that were going off and starting a party and stuff like that. That just wasn't for me. And I felt weird around them. Then I finally looked at this other thing and started to meet these kind of freaks, right? I'm like, oh, whoa, this is crazy. Like, these people are kind of crazy, but they're welcoming to me, and like, I actually like I really like these people, and it feels a lot like parenting to me, where it's like same kind of same trajectory
Right.
of like you kind of start off and you're like all buttoned up, like, yeah, I'm gonna be a parent, and
Yeah.
everyone's excited for you, and you don't know what's coming, and then you start getting into it, and it's like, oh, I thought that we were friends, but I guess we're not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, you're going off to do that. Well, I don't think that we're going to do that, and then like, you're not invited to the thing anymore. Like,
Right.
like these things, it starts to repeat itself. Like all of a sudden you're like, hey, we don't really feel like we fit in.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you're like, I got to go find people I fit in with,
Yep.
and it's like, you're battling against the exact same freaking ideas, dude. It's like, what are the things that we're up against? It's the same stuff. It's like, punk started like a big influence. Like there was a very kind of social and political aspect to it. There was this kind of like railing against, at that time, the powers that be, which were like there was a kind of anti-establishment vibe to it. There was at that time, a anti like big business record label aspect to it, because they were kind of gatekeeping that whole thing, where it's like, hey, you can't be on our record label, and so. Yeah, it was like we're questioning authority, right? Like we're having trouble with some of these systems in our society, and we're kind of over here figuring out our own thing. And it feels like we have followed the exact same fact pattern as parents. And I think I have stumbled into the exact same lessons that I learned, or kind of values, things that are kind of just you don't even think about when you're involved in that scene, that to me I've kind of fell back on.
Yep.
So I wanted to go through some of those like things that stand out to me, but before I do, I mean, I did want to stop and just like, that's what led me to that place.
Mm-hmm.
You've ended up in a very similar place,
Mm-hmm.
not having come from the hardcore background.
Yeah.
Why? Like, how does this make sense to you? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I have a really, really weird answer, but just bear with me. So if you've listened to other episodes, I do this work called grief recovery, and we help people with grief and loss. And my dad created this company, in the 70s. And so it's been around for a while, but it's still a pretty unknown kind of smaller thing, right? And it's a long story that we don't need to get into, but I became passionate about helping people with these tools after they really helped me with some losses I had. And so as I was getting going, training with my dad and some of the other people at the organization, they kind of showed me, everyone out there is familiar with the 5 stages of grief, right? And like if you look at any kind of academic group or in the media or really modern kind of culture, right? We're like, oh, you're in the 5 stages of grief. You're in the 5 stages of grief, right? It's just, it's common knowledge. There's 5 stages of grief, right?
Yep.
So when I got going with my dad, he's like, that's complete nonsense. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like 5 stages of grief, like that. There's 5 stages, right? And he's like, no, there's not. Like, and he broke down the history of what that was for, right? So real quick, history lesson. There's this gal named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, okay? And she's this woman, and at a time, kind of in the hospice movement of dying patients, she realized we don't really treat dying people very well. There's not a lot of dignity. There's not really a kind of way we handle that. She did this incredible work on adding more dignity and a process for dying people, okay? And it was originally designed for dying people. It was the 5 stages of death and dying, right? Yeah. And so when you look at the stages through that lens, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like bargaining, denial. Like if I'm diagnosed with I have 6 months to live, I'm probably going to be in denial of that, right? I'm going to probably be bargaining with God. Like I'm going to probably be angry, right? Like these stages work perfectly if I'm a dying human being, right? But what happened is colleges and academia and mental health at that time, they were just like, these 5 stages work so good for death and dying. Grief is very similar to dying. We'll just call it the 5 stages of grief. And so they literally put 5 stages on the emotional experience of having your mom die, or,
Yeah.
you go through a divorce. And it's like, okay, so if my 95-year-old grandmother dies, do you think there's a bunch of anger there? Probably not, right? She was 95. Is there denial there? Am I denying it when I'm like at the open casket to her thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so if you go to every stage there and you look at grief, like you understand really quickly, there's way, way, way more variables and emotions than 5 stages for grief. It's not even in the same ballpark.
Yep.
And so when I researched that and went and I was like, whoa, right? All they're saying is factual. Like I'm reading the insert in her book. I'm reading like what the book was designed for. It became really clear that there are things that happen in society that get pawned off as fact or the gospel on different things, and they're not questioned anymore, and they're totally based on stuff that is not remote. So anyway, that was kind of like me peeking behind the curtain, right, in Oz, and seeing like, it's like a little creeper back there. It's not this all-knowing kind of thing. And like that was part of it. My dad was also... He was a Vietnam veteran. He was very opinionated, and he had a backbone. He did not give a shit what you thought, and I think that came from him coming back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Being spit on, being called a baby killer, like all that stuff, right? It's like, I think for a lot of those guys, right, it either killed them, they turned into, homeless guys on drugs, or they really worked on how to figure out how to come back to a society that was frankly not really cool with them.
Yeah.
And so needless to say, he was not going to be swayed by society. He was going to really like do his research and figure out what he felt was right.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that he was an example to me about you don't need to go with the grain. You don't in fact, a lot of people are completely faking it. They look put together. That's another thing too. When you do the work I do and you work with people and you see all the stuff that they're dealing with, you just understand that they have a bunch of issues just like you do, right? And so, like for instance, right, I think a lot of like our parents' generation, they're like, well, they're a doctor,
Yeah.
and which translates for them to, they speak the truth, they're so smart, they're highly educated, right? Well, I work with the doctor over here doing grief recovery, and I know that their whole life is in shambles, and they have a bunch of problems, and they made a bunch of mistakes, just like I have, just like you have.
Yep.
And so when you start looking into people's lives, and you realize no one has it together. Like they're all struggling, they're all dealing with human stuff. I don't care if you wear a suit and tie and you're on the evening news. You're a human being, totally flawed.
Wow.
I don't care if you're a doctor. You're a human being. You're totally flawed. You could be wrong about a bunch of stuff. And when you stop thinking that there's some ruling class that actually knows what they're doing.
Like some like benevolent ruling class that's just like, oh, this is how we're going to help society this year, and we have it all figured out.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist, right? And through working in a profession that I was viewed as like an alternative, a quack, like who's this guy? You're not a counselor. You're not a psychiatrist. Like I've been almost laughed out of the room of like a room full of doctors at a board table. I've been disrespected enough from the powers that be to understand that
you're like, this is just making me stronger.
Yeah, you have to be unmovable, right? You have to understand what you do. And I had already helped, and I'd seen this work help way too many people to care what these doctors that are like bickering in the back cared about, this work.
Yeah.
And so, and the reason I wanted to cover this topic is I don't want to minimize it all. Like, again, what you went through to be in hardcore, and like to our listeners that have went through hardcore, right? And you're like taking a bunch of shit from your parents, and you're getting a bunch of flack from people. Like that's a courageous, bold move that you guys made to like find this community. Because I know it saved a lot of people's lives. Like, we've talked about it, right? It's like this really cool thing. And you took a lot of flack to do that. I feel, at least as a parent, you got to multiply that by a factor of 10, because people will call you a child abuser. You know what I mean? Like when we're talking about making decisions that are counterculture as a parent, you got to have a real backbone.
Dude, that's a great point. Yeah, like, 'cause I think hardcore that has given me the boldness, I think, or like it's gotten me used to that type of decision
For
to where
sure.
like, I'm going to do this thing. I don't care what people think. It's going to make some people unhappy.
Yes.
Like, and it's not my first time doing that. Like, cool.
Right.
But you're right. It is not, I think if you are a parent that has not gone through that experience and you have a kind of meek disposition towards some of these things, like you are going to have a hard time. Like you have to be able to make some, like the difficult decisions are difficult for a reason. Like you're doing something that is going to cause friction with your friends, and it's going to be something that you have to kind of just power through and just basically be like, nah, I don't care.
Right. Right. And that's what I love about how you set this up. How you set this conversation up at the start is 100% true, dude. As I usually do, I may even go a little bit harder. I think that like if you start from the premise of a lot of these people actually want you and your family dead, it will motivate you and allow you to
very sick maybe for a long time.
I mean, so I again, we can disagree with this, right? And Sam's usually the more reasonable of the two. But like if I come from the place of like my these people do not have my family's best intentions in heart. A lot of these people want my kids completely confused on a mental level, on an emotional level. And it is my job, right? It is my job and my wife's job to protect these innocent, little, beautiful, amazing beings. It's my job at all costs to protect them from the harm that people are trying to do from them.
Absolutely.
And I've done enough research to be crystal clear that like there is harm trying to be done on them.
Yeah, for sure.
And
well, again, like harm, let's be clear. It's not evil people like, ooh, like what are we going to do to these kids? I mean, maybe, but it's realistically day to day. It's just like, hey, this makes a lot of money for us, and we want as many people doing this thing as possible. We don't really give a shit if it's good for them or not. Actually, we don't care at all.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're protecting a lot of the time from is just like this thing that makes them money. It's like, cool, I get it that you're like, whatever, like seed oil veggie burger is like really scalable and high margin for you to make. I have to protect my family from that. And you know what I mean? Like it's my job to stand between our kids and like processed food like that and be like, hey, actually, no, I'm sorry, this is not going to make you more money. We're going to eat something that is free for us, right? Like, or we buy eggs from you. Like, it's like, that's the thing, dude. Like that, if you ever get lost on any of this stuff, remember that the things that are probably best for you and your family don't cost anything.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. I mean, if we wanted to have a popular fatherhood podcast, we would be saying things like, and this is, I don't want to like name names, but I have seen this in the kind of like fatherhood content that's out there. The like maximum level of detail and advice, you'd be like, you got to keep showing up for your kids. It's like, got it. But showing up isn't going to help me protect them from this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and again, like it's not just one thing. Like there's all these things where, and for another episode, but it's like, we're having to equip our kids for a world that is relatively predatory in how it makes money and how it kind of, anyways, we can get to that another time. But, so what I wanted to kind of, close with is a few things that came to mind for me when I was thinking about specific things when I kind of dissect my mental model on this that I have taken from that background of hardcore music, punk music, that have been really influential and helpful concepts to me that just, funny enough, apply perfectly to parenting. The first one is the do-it-yourself mentality. Punk music is all about DIY. Like the history again is big record labels wouldn't put out the music, right? So we go off and we make our own record labels. We make the artwork for the record. We put together the poster, the flyer for the show. We record the record ourselves. We book the show. Like you do it all yourself. It's a fully kind of self-regulating, decentralized community. And so to me, what a perfect kind of analogy to how I think about parenting in a lot of ways. So we're not currently in a homestead setup, but what is homesteading? It's the definition of DIY. It's like we're going to have our own land. We're going to make our own food. In some cases, have our own power. Like we're doing it all ourselves. because we don't want to be dependent on other people, and we actually resent the idea of being dependent on other people.
Yep.
I hate
love
that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's like that translates perfectly, and I think that's something that's deep kind of in how I think of just like not wanting to depend on other people and that desire to be independent and do it ourselves.
Well, and and I totally agree with you. And I think another parallel that now that you're talking about this, I'm thinking of is, yes, we're doing it ourselves, but we also understand that it takes a community, right, to do it. And it's like, look at the community you have in hardcore, right? Look, like that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Same with homesteading, right? It's like, dude, I don't have a bulldozer when the berms get too high of snow. That's my neighbor.
Yep.
But we've been giving him eggs for the last 6 months. So he's happy to come over and push the berms off. So right? And it's like real community helping out for real purpose, and it's like that's a huge piece of it. Yeah. And not so much just homesteading, but again, do you know how much easier it is to be a parent making these decisions when your whole friend group is making similar decisions, or at least you guys are discussing these things, right?
Yep.
And it's like,
I mean, that's
a lot easier.
That's similar to one of the things I was going to touch on is around, So the second one is being willing to question authority. That's built into
getting fired up right
hardcore
now.
And punk music.
Keep talking, Sam.
I mean, that's what it's all about. And so to me, it makes absolutely no sense when I see people that come from a hardcore background, punk background, have kids, and all of a sudden they're just signing up for like whatever people are dishing out to them.
Dude, it's so sad.
It's like, wait a second, dude. Where was all the freaking, where'd all the critical thinking go? Where'd all the skepticism go? Because I'm still freaking skeptical. This isn't making sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do, so fuck you. Like, that's kind of where my head is at on a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think you have to that's what this episode's all about, is like, that doesn't go away just because you became a parent. It's like, you now have new forces, you have new things that you are contending with that you should be skeptical of. Yeah. And you should not just do what they tell you to do because you're a parent and it's different. It's like, nah, man, like these are the same powers, the same government, same whatever you ever want to call it.
Yeah. That
you were up against before.
They're just way more weapонized now. They're just more powerful now. And they care even less now.
Like, bro, they were up against like record labels in like the 70s and 80s. And now it's like the most like, just like technologically advanced, it's crazy. So that was the second one.
Well, that's what's so crazy is you see these big like rock stars defending like mega corporations, like multinational corporations. And you're just like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yep. The next one was around embracing rawness and realness, right? So I think that is obviously, like, when you listen to punk music, hardcore music, it is stripped down, it is raw, there's a lot of emotion, it's the real deal. There's not a layer of like, you're not hiding behind a facade, right? You're giving yourself 100% to people. You're not dressing stuff up. That to me is what a family should look like and what having kids should look like. So when we roll up to the Starbucks in Seattle and our kids are like barefoot and like dirty and like running around and being crazy, like, that's because that's what's really going down at their age, right? They're not like dressed up in their nice little clothes and like behaving a perfect little way, and like things aren't in these nice little neat boxes. It's like, nah, man, like we're gonna do it like the way it's meant to be done, right? We're not gonna like it's like, dude, our neighbor's like 75 and she like always gives us a hard time because her kids are barefoot. She's like, they're gonna get sick. Like, because in her generation, it was like, all the kids like wore like buttoned up shirts and shoes and said like, hello, sir, hello, ma'am. And it's like, nah, man, like, no, like that's not what it looks like to us. And so we're all about the kind of raw and rugged lifestyle with our kids, and not, I don't care for the facade or trying to, again, like, this to me is like, I'm not trying to sound or look a certain way or polish our lifestyle a certain way so that people approve of us.
Yep.
And that to me is a big feature of punk music.
Yes. Yes.
The other one I had was kind of what you touched on, which is the importance of relationships and the importance of community and kind of like the loyalty that you build, or just kind of it's natural in that world. I think when people like are basically coming from just the civilian world, like, oh, I went to college and now I'm having kids and we're in a suburb and all that stuff. It's like, there's this kind of disposable mentality about the people that you befriend or your peers, it's like, oh, well, I have my family now, so yeah, who cares about them? You know, like it's kind of like you pretty happily just kind of sail off into the sunset, just kind of doing your own thing, you know. And like if I don't get in touch, if I'm not in touch with Cole anymore, who gives a shit? He's got his own family, I've got my family. Like, oh well, you know. And to me, like you said, this stuff only works like when you're going against the grain. A feature of that is that you, it can be a lonely road. Like you are doing something that is different than the norm, than the mainstream. That can be very isolating. And so you need to have people that you're really like connected to and in a real way. So it's like it's just natural to me from that, like, again, like the kind of hardcore world, that like the people that I know through hardcore, like I will ride with to the end. You know what I mean? Like there's just a type of bond that you establish that you don't find in like civilian society.
Yep.
And that's how I rolled. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
the people that we meet, like you guys, like our friends that we meet here in Idaho that are close to our family, like I'll ride with those people forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not like oh, Cole and Ashley said something awkward at the party, so we're not going to hang out with them anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like, nah, like once we're friends, we're friends.
Yep.
And it's like, you call me at any time, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
And like that exact scenario is played out a million times in like the hardcore world. Like, yeah, we're meeting up at this place to do this thing. Like we're all going to be there.
Yep.
You know, it's like not even a question.
Yep.
And so that's a massive part to me.
Yeah.
And so the last one I had was around the willingness to be an outcast. That is kind of, I think, hopefully summarizes the theme of this, you know, going against the grain. You have to, at the end of the day, be willing to make decisions that will make you not fit in with people. And you, again, have to have the kind of boldness and the kind of sureness to say, like, yeah, that's okay with me.
Yep.
You know, and like, that is really hard for some people to do. And again, I think we've covered it sufficiently in this episode, but that is kind of what punk music is all about. That's why I have a mohawk, right? And I wear spikes on my clothes. It's just like, yeah, I don't care if I don't fit in at all.
Yeah.
You know, and like, actually, I'm okay with that. And I'm going to lean into that.
Yep.
I think you you can't do all this stuff and then also try to still fit in to something. Like, it's like, no, like you're at a certain point, you are not going to be able to hang out with some of the same people. Like that could be extreme, but it happens, you know, like where, and again, you have to first be willing to say, it matters most to me what's right, what I know to be right for my family.
Yep.
And for my kids. And that's my number one priority.
Yes.
So why don't we end with just a couple examples of like real areas where this shows up, you know, like what are some of the places that we got to navigate this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I can just name a few off the top of my head. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah.
So obviously we covered diet, like food is a huge one for kids because that's just like everyday stuff.
Yep.
And that's a massively corrupt industry.
Yep.
As we hopefully know. You know, screen, like we've talked about screen time and technology. That's a massive just area of decisions that we have to navigate, right? Are we going to raise our kids on iPads or are we going to not do that? Are we going to, you know, like send them to a school that has iPads all day? Are we going to, you know, let them go to sleep with phones in their room? You know, like there's all these decisions that we're having to navigate.
And are we going to let them when are we going to have access to the internet? Like, do they get video games? Like, that's a huge one, right? That I hope parents are really, really thinking deeply on is like, what's the best for my kid? Not what's the easiest for me and my wife when we go to a restaurant and we want them to all be quiet, or what's the easiest when I get home from the day of work and I'm tired? Is it easier for them to be on the PS9 or whatever it is now? You know, it's like these are the hard questions where it will make your life harder, right? Yeah. By making some of these decisions, right? But what matters more? The health of your child, the well-being of your child, you know, or you being comfy? Yeah. Because like we've talked about in other episodes, like I forget what the statistic is, but like make no mistake, like the more amount of blue light your kid gets, the higher level of depression and suicidal thoughts that they have. These are the things that we're up against. And going back to that, like these things are known by the tech companies. These things are known by, you know, large television makers. Mm-hmm. Like they could do stuff to mitigate the blue light levels. They don't care. They don't care. They understand that the blood-brain barrier, and like, I'm not a doctor, but but kids' brains are not equipped as well as ours, and ours even aren't that great either. There's massive health problems happening, for older people with blue light, but they are very, very susceptible to this. And all these tech companies know it, and they don't care, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so we'll keep going, but tech is a huge one.
Tech's
Against the grain. It's like food, tech, what else?
Yeah. I mean, school's a big one.
Education. How are you?
Education, yeah. And like, again, I don't want us to have our own template of like, here's what you should do based on what we think. Like, I think we want to just say, hey, these are major areas. Like, be aware that you are navigating, again, this, like, the norms in these different areas may be there for reasons that aren't the best for you. And so, like,
and also leave in the comments, like, show me the research and studies that say that like 50 hours a day of TV is beneficial for your kid.
Yeah.
Like, again, I would love like research on the other side of some of this stuff too.
Yeah,
so I agree. Like, we're not telling you what to do, but we're also like, just again, bring the receipts on the other side of some of the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, so school's a big one. And again, like, I'm actually not even trying to apply like a right or wrong answer or a judgment on that. Like, I think there's a lot of factors that depend on where you live and what you can arrange with, your working, like, there's a ton to it, right?
Totally.
I mean, how you birth your child, right? At a hospital or a home birth or with a, midwife or not a midwife. Like, there's all these things with that where we've had home births the last 2 times. And luckily we were, I think, heading in a direction where everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But, that's a controversial decision. Us making the choice for Raquel to stay home with our kids, there was a time where that was kind of controversial, and that wasn't what people were doing in our social circle.
Yep.
Right. So that sounds simple enough, but and by the way, like, especially at that time, it wasn't like that was an easy decision to make. It was like, hey, this was all kind of working when we were both working, and we're going to kind of make this tough choice and figure it out. Man, I mean, where you live is a big one, and how you live. Like, are we going to live in a apartment complex or a condo or a suburb, or are we going to live rural? And again, yeah, it depends on your work and what you do, but like, you should have some control over that.
Yep.
And that makes a big difference, right?
Yep.
What else?
Let's see. We covered, again, I think I touched on it a little bit, but I think another theme that both of us are big on is just kind of the illusion that your safety, your family's safety is up to the local sheriff's department or
right.
the local PD, right? It's like, I believe that going against the grain is also understanding that, like, I know this is a crazy old antiquated idea, but as the father, you are the protector. Again, I think that should be on your radar about doing it maybe a little different than, everybody else, which is like have no security posture whatsoever, and no plan. And then healthcare. I think healthcare is a huge one. Okay, there's a lot of push by huge corporations and massive amounts of ads on television for you to do it exactly like they think you should do it. And and so I think you need to really do your research and be on the same page with you and your wife on some of the decisions you make.
Yeah.
And understanding that you don't have to make every decision that is recommended by your pediatrician. Yeah. I love that you laid out at the start that these are all, transnational corporations and that's really who's kind of shifting and proposing these decisions. But a lot of people aren't there yet, like parents. What they think is they go, well, this is how it's always been done, right?
Yeah.
We always drink OJ because that's right? They didn't know that, like, orange companies were like, dang, we're not selling enough oranges. Let's just do this, and we'll just pay a doctor to say it's really healthy for you, and just, we'll have kids mainline sugar. So they just go, it's always done this way. But you need to pause and say, no, it was not, right? The amount of shots that you and I got when we were babies at the pediatrician is vastly different than the amount that is happening now. And our grandparents had like none at all, right? And it's like, so you have to understand things are always shifting, and it's not always been done this way.
Yep.
But a lot of time we think that way.
Yep.
Education has never been how it is right now. It's always been this way. No, it hasn't,
No,
right?
it hasn't, yeah.
There was like single room schools for a while. There was apprenticeships. There was, all these different options
Well,
you
dude,
have.
you're even making it more extreme than it needs to be. It's like even from 90.
That's my job, Sam.
Even from the 90s to now, it's like in the 90s, there weren't phones in the classroom. Kids weren't like pulling up porn in the 5th grade, in between classes and like showing your kid and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like that wasn't there. It's
Yeah.
like, we've talked about this before. Like people are desperate to recreate the experience they had. And it's like, hey, dude, this isn't the freaking 90s anymore or
Right.
the 80s.
Right.
Like it is a lot different out there. And like the variability of like real messed up stuff that can happen in school, real messed up kids that can be in school with your kids, like that are on crazy medications and on their phones all the time and looking at, God knows what. It's like, that wasn't there in the 90s, dude. It was kind of like, yeah, that kid's a little weird. That kid's on Ritalin, it's kind of all good. Like, it's not like that anymore, dude.
No, and you're not even talking about like crazy people that come and shoot children on like a regular basis.
Yeah, so
and it's
exactly.
funny. It's not funny. I was talking to a dad the other day and we were vibing. Like he was like, yeah, really, my wife really figured out like her whole goal. Like she wanted to stay at home and help raise our kid and be there, when our kid got back from school and he was talking about how amazing it was. And I was like, yeah, I really love that we have the opportunity to do that with my kids too. And then my wife, homeschools our kids, and there's like a record scratch, and that's like where he was getting off the bus, and he had like all these,
Yeah.
You could just tell he was spiraling over that.
Yeah.
And he was just like, well, and then he went to like textbook, like old school. He goes, well, what about their socialization? And I'm like, yeah, they actually hang out with kids a lot, here and here and blah, blah, blah. And again, right, that goes to show you we don't have to be all on the same page with stuff, but things change, things happen, and it's like there's a lot, and we all have different opinions, and that's fine.
The last one I can think of is like religion or spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
If you're coming in, like this is so funny to me, people that are like our age, late 30s, mid 40s, whatever, and they're coming in being like, I'm anti-religion. It's like, oh, sick, dude. Like, what a sick countercultural perspective you have there. Like, it's not the 50s anymore, dude. Like, that's not a cool, extreme thing to say.
Yeah.
And so, like, I heard an interview recently with a guy that kind of came from the punk world and sings in a band. He's like basically saying how his big beliefs that were like shocking were that he's anti-organized religion and like anti-people eating meat. It's like, bro, it's not like, that's not sick anymore.
Yeah.
like that was a crazy take to have in like, the 90s or early 2000s, like Bush era, like, yeah, I'm anti-Christian because of, it's like, dude, like,
Yeah.
the time has passed. Like you are actually in the mainstream by having a take like that. So yeah, you're not turning any heads at the party by being like, I'm anti-religion. Go in there and say that you're Christian, you believe in Jesus, and see what people do.
Yeah.
They'll be like, oh,
Yep.
what a freak. It's like, so. All right. We've said too much.
I think there are plenty more against the grains, but I think we covered the main ones that are kind of on our roadmap of just, again, things to talk about with your wife, and like just about things.
We'll think of more after this, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure we will.
Like, fuck, we didn't talk about it.
Oh.
All right. We've said it all.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening if you made it this far.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's been several record scratches for people listening to this, but it's okay.
I mean, look, if we can't get back to talking about things and having a dialogue as fellow, Americans, like if we can't just talk about stuff and disagree and get heated but come together and be like, oh, well, that's an interesting thought. That's not what the page I'm on. Like, I think that's why we're willing to be maybe more bold than we thought we would be when we started the show. But it's like we have to get back to this.
Indeed, it's
like me and that dude have to disagree about. Okay, well, homeschooling's a bridge too far, but we agree on this. Cool, like great. Yeah. Like I got no problem. Like thank you for the conversation. Versus, you're a child abuser because you homeschool, or whatever.
I love that, and like massive respect to my friend Mike Riley that listens to this. If he's made it this far, he's hit me up multiple times and been like, I didn't really like what you guys said about that or agree with that, but he still listens to it and checks it out. And I'm sure me, him, and you wouldn't all agree on several things, but like, it doesn't mean that everything we say is stupid or we're, like evil or dumb or like whatever. It's just like, no, like, we're kind of navigating this thing and it's kind of hard and we're figuring out what to do. And I want to kind of hear what this person has to say, what this person has to say. And so I respect that, man. I love that. And that to me is, again, going back to the hardcore thing, like, yeah, you kind of have people from all different backgrounds and, you're able to kind of be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a guy the other day about it and I agree. Like, that's cool that guy listens and we could all be friends. It doesn't,
absolutely.
we don't have to agree on those things necessarily, but, I was talking to this guy and we were talking about like social media stuff and, it's wild how the algorithm and how they've created it to really amp you up and get you outraged and just keep feeding you the exact same thing. And then this person's over here being fed this exact same thing. And, it's just giant corporations that really would prefer us divided.
Yeah.
Prefer us split up, prefer families kind of broken and us all atomized,
Yeah.
The last thing they want is a multi-generational compound for Sam in Idaho, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the last thing they want, is a bunch of brothers that stay friends forever and all make decisions together with all their families, like, and are strong and have a foundation in whatever. Yeah. Like, that is the last thing they want.
Yeah. I mean, let's end on that. It's like, if we were all fully independent and living on our own and healthy and happy, if we were doing what we just talked about, we were doing it all ourselves and we kind of had our own thing going on. And
local hardcore shows all around the land.
Like, that would be untenable for all of these. Like, we would have no economy as a country and all these places would be bankrupt because you can't control or make money from people that are doing their own thing and having healthy, happy lives.
Yeah, you can't make money when they're not sick.
Yeah. And yeah. So, all right.
So to our 3 listeners who are left, we appreciate you. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yep.